Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm your host, Cesar Hernandez, and I'm here with Amy. I'm here with Adriana. We'll go to Adriana first because Amy was just taking a sip of water. How are you? We were just talking about socks and shoes and how it's kind of getting cold, but over there it's not too cold, but you want it to be colder in Mexico City. How are you?
People probably think we're making this up, but yeah, we were talking about socks just before we came on. Yeah, it is. It's cold-ish, but not Christmas cold. Like you want to have like hot cocoa or something like that. If I go to my parents, it's like 3 degrees colder. It's really crazy because it's only like, I don't know, like 4 miles away or something. So something happens with the altitude. I guess we're all really happy, and Liga MX had an amazing final. Really hectic. A lo Atlas, like it had to be. So yeah, it's weird though, because I'm starting to think about next semester since it's so close. I mean, it starts in less than a month.
Yeah.
So I'm already like looking, like I'm jotting down like calendar dates and when the Clásico is coming up and stuff like that. I start planning and I'm like, wait, we just finished this like yesterday, like hours ago, literally. So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and as we're talking, we're still dealing with the semis of the Liga MX, like feminine, like playoff run too. So there's just always something going on. But to you, Amy, how are you? I guess like me, you're also like feeling like it's like winter in Southern California now. It feels like it's like winter.
Yeah, man, it's cold. It's really cold. Like,
yeah.
I don't mind it, so to speak, but I also don't really care for it because, like, I don't know if I ever said this on the show, but like our house literally has like no insulation. Like whoever built this just decided to give like a really like little más minimal effort.
Just thought it wasn't important.
They just like, why are we gonna put it? So it gets really cold here, really fast, and then like it dips like really like significantly once the sun goes down. So it's been a little uncomfortable. And then I get worried that the kids are going to get sick. But we've had the excitement of I tweeted this out and I was talking to some friends. I was like, Cruz Azul was the first champion this year. Then we had New York City FC that I mentioned for no reason by hijacking the show last week. And then we have Atlas winning. Like, what an absolutely ridiculous year for North American soccer. Because like you couldn't make this up last year.
The pandemic in general.
Yeah.
The pandemic in general has ended like so many dry streaks. It's like, it's crazy. It's like, what the hell happened? Like we needed people like these teams not to have the pressure of tons of fans in the stadiums the whole time. And then that's when they actually got the championship. Because I have no idea like what, like you had Cruz Azul, but you also had like Dodgers. In the UK, you had Italy that never like they hadn't won like the Euro like in 50 years or something, and then you have Cruz Azul. You have Cruz Azul and Atlas. And people were really joking on social media yesterday. They were like, "This, if there's any sign that the world is coming to an end, it's because Cruz Azul and Atlas were champions on the same year."
Well, I can't wait until what did we still tweet out? Just like Puebla are going to win it next, and then Veracruz are going to come back, and they'll probably somehow win it.
No, it was really. It was really funny because after the match, well, even during, my dad was like, because I don't know if your parents do this at this point, but my dad will ask me as if I know every answer, but he asked me now knowing I have my phone on me every time, so he knows I'm just going to Google the answer for him. So he'll be like, how old is this player or whatever. And somehow even when I go, I don't know, he's like, well, check your phone, blah, blah, blah. So the game is ending, right? And it's been like 70 years. And of course, everybody's going crazy. So he just looks at me. He's like, who's the next person with a drought? He's like, I know Cruz Azul was the one before this. And then it was Atlas. And I'm like, I don't know. And I think if I check correctly, it is Puebla, right? Who has the like next drought. I think they haven't won it in like 30 plus years.
31
like,
years.
Something like that. Yeah.
And then after that, is it Querétaro? But Querétaro were like they joined the first division like the 90s or early 90s or something like that, right?
The thing is, they're considering teams that have won at least once but haven't won it since.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that's
you
how
could
I
like Juarez and
drought,
Mazatlán and Atlético San Luis, but yeah, the last one that actually has a championship is Puebla, and after that it's Necaxa.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think
And then
Necaxa has 40 years, right? They have like around 40. I think they won it like in 83.
No, they won it at like 98. So
really?
they're actually behind Puebla. Puebla actually won it when it was still the year-long tournaments. So it was 80. I did this story like a while ago, like hours ago. This is why I know this. It was 89-90 for Puebla.
There you go.
And then Necaxa won in 98.
Yes.
And then after that, the curious thing is after that, it's Toluca and then it's Pumas. So when I saw those, I was like, are you kidding? Is it really Toluca? Because I mean, Toluca is probably the strongest team ever since like semester-long tournaments that we've seen, right? You could argue probably Tigres, but the one that I think has most championships in the semester-long tournaments is Toluca's, and then they're actually with the longest dry spell between like actual championships. So, yeah, weird.
Yeah, well,
Go
I guess
Puebla.
yeah. But I guess we gotta talk about the team that won it most recently, and by most recently, I mean literally what 24 hours ago. Shout out to Atlas for the winning the. I mean, we could just. I know people are probably tired of us saying the same things over and over again. They've already seen the tweets, but I think it's worth repeating once more. First title since Liga MX title since 1951. They've waited 70 years for this moment. It's the first time they've qualified for a final to begin with in the 21st century. So an incredible achievement. And I don't know. Amy, where do you want to start with this one? Just because, I mean, I think there's so many different ways we can tackle this, whether it be about Atlas themselves, the future, the atmosphere at the stadium, I know you were against it, but I said I wanted to talk about the newlyweds for the entirety of the show. You said
I wasn't against it. I actually,
that was a lukewarm. I'll allow it, but yeah.
I think you were one of the first tweets I saw that actually mentioned it, because you quote tweeted somebody, but I hadn't seen that original tweet. So you're like, I just have so many questions. Is it before or after the game?
I still have this. I might have to write about it, but yeah.
And then at the end, I think she wasn't happy that they won, right? Or like that. Then there was the other speculation, like maybe she was a Leon fan or whatever. No, but I think a big takeaway from this game was that despite how much we talked about the league itself during the regular season being kind of boring, maybe some of the worst that we've seen in terms of goal scoring, and all that, this second leg in particular, I mean, the first leg was really exciting. But I think the second leg in particular was actually pretty intense from like the very beginning, whether it was seeing the sea of red, which, I don't like, obviously, given Atlas's very long history of not having won anything, right? But it was just it was really intense to see like that level of like red in a stadium for me. From, first off, I was like, wow, like everybody got together and just coordinated really well. But it was really intense from the very beginning, and it was crazy that it took this long. It was almost torturous for Atlas to get to that point when it came to PKs and stuff, right? Because they could have very well won this at various moments in the match. Whether it was the post that we was in love with for the first like 40 minutes or so. That header that I still don't understand, even as somebody who misses sitters on a constant basis. You can possibly miss that. There was just so many things, but it was really exciting, and it was a lot of fun to watch. That I took away from it the most, from the very beginning. I don't think there was ever a point where you're like, oh, this is a dud, or whatever. It was just super intense, like from the very beginning.
Yeah, and like especially since like I go into a lot of these like Liga MX games just unbiased. I'm just hoping for like a good match, but by time that I can't believe I forgot who it was from Atlas who missed the header, because it was Barbosa who had the shot.
Zaldívar, he ended up making his PK, ironically.
Yeah, but like at that point, I was just like, oh, like I was kind of rooting for Atlas at that point. It's like, oh my god, it's like to have hit like the woodwork twice, to like miss that clear open opportunity, and just to like be so incredibly close to winning the title. And at that point, I kind of pushed for them a little bit, especially with the crowd like in the stands too, and just like the tens of thousands that were there, and just like I couldn't help but find myself rooting for them a little bit. And I think I don't know how you felt, but it really was a thrilling and exciting match. And even if Atlas had lost it, I think Leon also, like, they put in a good effort as well. Consider they went down to 10 players as well, and they did all right in extra time there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all, except probably Leon and probably the entire state of Guanajuato, everyone was rooting for Atlas for some reason or other. I guess it's just the fact that we wanted, like most people wanted to see a team be a champion, which we hadn't seen. Probably, like if you actually saw Atlas champion, that means you're over 70 years old, and probably just a bit older in case you were actually conscious and that game was, you remember that game going on. So it was, I really saw everyone rooting for Atlas, except obviously Leon fans. Everything about the final was really special in the way that, I mean, the first leg was really crazy. I thought it was just really intense, and it was intense in the same way in the second leg, except that we just didn't see the goals. I mean, we saw Atlas all the time, just all over Leon. I mean, if it weren't for all those clear misses, I mean, I'm pretty sure they could have won like 3-0, 3-1 or something. It was just a most amazing night. It was, I mean, he was probably the one that really didn't just amazing all night long. And then the entire stadium and everything that went on in Guadalajara, you had people begging for tickets. There was some violence when the tickets came out in Guadalajara. And then people started comparing to what happened at the Jalisco with how usually you hear about South American stadiums, right? You usually hear about how the stadium is beating, or, you can feel the atmosphere. And many people said that was the Jalisco yesterday. It was just an entire different environment. Nothing we've probably ever seen at the Jalisco. And then obviously Atlas, 7 years without a championship, over 20 without a final. They had never played a second leg at their final at their stadium, which was also interesting. So that was historical as well. And then, I mean, it was just all these different things. But yeah, obviously Saldívar, the header. I think we could, I think we were all quiet, you could probably hear people screaming in unison, like wherever you were, because it was just amazing how he missed that. And then it's just like one of these stories, because one of the things like Cruz Azul, you say Cruz Azulear because they're just used to messing up in the last minutes. Atlas always had to suffer. So you always had a lo Atlas. It was something, if they won with the goal in the 92nd minute and suffering and struggling and in the worst way possible, but they got the job done. And that was just what happened yesterday. It was a lo Atlas. They had to go all the way to PKs after suffering the entire game, but dominating to actually get that championship. So it was really great. It was a really colorful final for Liga MX, and just really weird to think that 6 months ago it was Cruz Azul. It's just exciting, scary. I don't know what to think of it. But yeah, it was a great way to end the semester. If we remember, like probably the first couple of months of the tournament were really poor, like performance-wise. We'd had so many games with 1 goal, maybe 2 goals, and we were just criticizing how poor the level was at the beginning of the tournament, and it ended off with a really great final. So I really appreciate that, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was interesting too, because I like that you probably go Aldo Atlas, because I forgot there was a question. I think it was they asked Luis Reyes, like, did you do this like in the way that like Atlas would? And I think the way that he responded with, he said like, well, actually this is the new Atlas. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's like it's not Aldo Atlas. It's like this is a new Atlas, and then he even shouted out like Grupo Orlegui, and it's like that's like you don't really hear like players like shouting out like
let's go AEG.
Yeah, you don't hear players like shouting out like ownership, and you're like, all right, this is kind of interesting.
Paycheck coming through.
But clearly, like I don't know, clearly there does feel like it's a new era for Atlas. Whether it be with the senior, with the men's side, whether it be with the women's side, who are currently in the semifinals, and they'll be taking part in the second leg later on tonight, whether it be with the new training facility and an academy that they're going to be building that should be set at some point next year. It seems like it is kind of a new Atlas. It's a new period for the team.
Actually, both teams, because León actually took advantage of all the attention with the final, and they announced their new club facilities also last week with all the press being there and everything. It's amazing. I think it's called La
Esmeralda?
La Esmeralda, yeah, I was thinking La Primavera, but that's Atlas. So it's curious how both teams actually, I mean, Atlas had it on their shirt and it said Transformando 2021-2022, and then León had that. The facilities look amazing, by the way. They're really, really nice. So it's curious how to see both teams actually going through this reinvention and trying to get better facilities and players and the youth system, and then both of them making it to the final. I mean, we see León many times like the last couple of years, but I mean, now seeing Atlas, it's just, I don't know, it's like a wake-up call to other teams to start to invest in those facilities and players and infrastructure and all that.
Quick little update: Tigres Femení just scored a goal. So
I could see like the 2U League pause for a second after seeing that golazo. Yeah, it was just like whoa. Yeah,
so they're tied on aggregate 2-2 now. So if it stays this way, Tigres goes on to another final. So
Amy, Amy, your thoughts? Any other additional thoughts on Atlas? Because it is pretty incredible what they've been able to achieve here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I like that idea that there's like this new shift, and very much so, right? Like you broke a 70-year drought. Like it's significant. Like things are
Yeah.
getting morale, whether that's with the ownership, with the team, with the players, with the coach, right? There is going to be a shift in some way, somehow, which is going to be really cool. But I did love. And I would even argue kind of in a sense that I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm speaking for Leon fans too much, but it didn't seem like there was too much disappointment because there was that level of like, well, Atlas will break the drought and like kind of good for them in a way, you know? And so with that, the storytelling was impeccable yesterday. Like there was just so many, you know, I think Adam Serrano was one of the first to share it, but it was like even that goal that was scored, whoever that community manager, whoever that content captured.
Oh yeah, like following him, right?
The following was amazing. Yeah. Getting all the fans in the stands, the people with the pictures of loved ones that had passed, that had never seen it. Yeah. There was a man in the stadium. I think he was 17 when they won their first one, so he was now 87, and he was there again in the stands. Somebody had like a video of them with their grandpa in their home. I really like that aspect of it, right? Because I was actually talking to my dad too, where I was like, theoretically, anybody who was like 0 years old, so had just been born and maybe are like 20 years old, you could kind of say, would probably still be alive to watch this, but to actually see that visual of like certain people that were still, alive and had finally been able to see it, or even people that had passed and now their family members were able to see it. And funny enough, my brothers play on a Sunday league team on Sundays, and so we had gone, and apparently one of their teammates had an Atlas tattoo on him. So we were talking about like contextually, this person that has never seen that team actually win a title has that much love and passion for his club team. And I think everybody here has always kind of said like Atlas fans have just kind of been like, brewing under the surface. They've never really had a reason to celebrate, but they've always been passionate and they've always kind of been there. And Carlos last week mentioned, that for Orlegi, this is going to be a goldmine of an opportunity because now they're going to have that chance to actually highlight, just how many Atlas fans there actually are, across the U.S. or in Mexico or wherever. So it was really cool to see that aspect of it, just as like an objective third person, to see like the stadium completely filled and all these people and how happy they were and just how much it mattered to them. Even some people that were not alive in 1951 were like, no, we're gonna eventually see them win the title. It was very, very, it was very cool, in that aspect. Because like you said, Adriana, with Cruz Azul, I think it just became like a running joke, and it was like, well, we're just gonna kind of keep poking.
Yeah, it was like, oh my god, just do it already. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas with Atlas,
Atlas hadn't even been there. Yeah, it was like, oh my god, you're never gonna have this chance again, and we're really being honest about this. Just go. Yeah. So, yeah, I love that. Like, yeah, there were really amazing stories. There was also this man who was, I think he was deaf, and then he turned blind. So his son would actually hold his hands and do signs and explain what was going on during the game. And he was brought down on the field, and he actually could say hello to several of the players, and he was really happy about that. So that was an amazing story as well. And then I was looking at they had a really big mass in the afternoon today, and all the players went and they thanked for the championship and everything. And it was funny because the porra goes arriba el Atlas, cabrones, but they were a church, so they couldn't say that in the church. So then they started going and they're like arriba Atlas, and they looked at each other and they're like, wait, we can't do that. And they were like campeones, no, campeones. So they kind of they like auto-censored themselves, and they were like, no, wait, we can't do that here. So that was really funny because you had the priests in the front and everything, and they're like, no, we have to change it up, guys. We can't say that here in the house of the Lord, So that was pretty funny as well. And they obviously had a parade a while ago as well. And they say something like 30,000 people actually went out on the streets last night. So I don't think anybody went to work today in Guadalajara. So that was fun as well.
Yeah, I feel like we have to give a little bit of a shout out to Leon too, because I think, if that penalty shootout was just slightly different, and a penalty shootout, sometimes those things can kind of go up in the air, but if it was slightly different, you do wonder what conversation we'd be having about Leon. And I think with Leon, I feel like I'd be saying that, this is a team that has looked like one of the strongest Liga MX teams, and if not the strongest Liga MX team in recent years. And I feel like it's kind of important to recognize that they were also incredibly close to accomplishing that. And even though they didn't end up winning it, it's pretty amazing that even with a new manager, this is his first season with the team, Leon were able to win the League's Cup. They were, and I know people will kind of like laugh and maybe smirk a little bit when I say that, but still, for a new manager to win any kind of tournament, that's still pretty impressive up from the get-go, and to also qualify for the final this season. And if you look at Leon in general too, this would have been their second title from the last 3 seasons. They had a finals appearance in 2019 as well. So I think credit is due to Leon as well, who were very close, and who honestly they didn't look that terrible when they went down to 10 players and extra time. Actually, in fact, I thought there are a couple moments where I thought like, wow, what if Leon actually get the game winner here? What if they actually end up winning this Liga MX title despite the fact that they weren't able to do it? So I think Atlas are obviously the deserved winners, and it's so cool to see the storyline regarding Atlas. There's so much more we can go into with Atlas, like with that one local place that's giving out it's like free tortas for the day, and like the married couple. It's just like there's a lot of fun stuff to dive into, but also like I think credit to Leon, who I don't know made this final really exciting and deserved a finalist.
I was actually surprised that they weren't as amazing as they were in the first leg. I thought if that Leon would have shown up yesterday at the Jalisco, I'm pretty sure they would have gotten the win. Atlas, I mean, obviously you have to think about the motivation, being home game for second leg, everyone there. Like I think that was pretty decisive for Atlas. But also I was kind of disappointed not to see that aggressive Leon that we saw in the first leg. I don't know if it was because Atlas was playing so well, because they really were. I mean, it was halftime and I was like, these guys should be winning 2-0. But on the other hand, I was like, it wasn't the Leon that I was expecting. I mean, obviously, they had an amazing run throughout the season, and kudos to Holland for making it to the final in his first semester in Liga MX as well. I was also joking that when we saw Fernando Navarro take the penalty kick, we were just saying, oh my God, we're always criticizing Martino for not calling him up. If he misses the penalty, now he's actually going to have a really good excuse not to do that, and then he missed the penalty kick. But yeah, that's an amazing team as well. I don't think they'll keep most players for next season, by the way. I'm pretty sure
it's an aging team.
I think it was also it was the oldest team in the semester. And Atlas was the second youngest, which is also, I mean, it tells you things, right? But I do think there's already rumors regarding, I think it's Angulo leaving to Tigres, and I think Meneses probably joining Ambriz in Toluca. So yeah, that didn't take long to happen.
Amy, your thoughts on Leon, or also just about the next season, because Leon, I mean, they don't have to, be like a little too bummed out about this, because the next Liga MX season starts on January 7th. It's going to be, like usual, an absolutely quick turnaround when it comes to these things.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I don't think it was at halftime, although it might have been, but it was just funny to there was at some point or another an advertisement like, don't miss out on the 2022 season coming like January 7th. I was like, this game's not even done yet. Why are we? Also, it was a critique because I'm obviously the most in-depth person that's consistently watching the Liga MX men's side or the feminine side with my family, and some of my brothers were they're very into Sunday night football right now, like American football. So I was like, oh, let's put on the game. The game's about to start, blah, blah. And they're like, there's just going to be a new champion 6 months from now. So I was like, yeah, but still. It was quite hilarious how quick that turnaround is. But
you're like, correction, 5 months.
Yeah. No, it'd be way quicker.
And the same thing's going to happen during the summer. Because we're used to having this really long summer break, and now that's not going to happen either. We're going to have I think the finals on the 29th of May, and then the Apertura 2022 starts on July 1st. So, I mean, that's really great. I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, I've never had a Liga MX game on my birthday, and then it's going to happen this time because it's going to be just really, really close. So, yeah, weird things are coming for Liga MX, even weirder things, because it's weird already.
Yeah, already. But yeah, a quick reminder for those who are curious. Yeah, so the 2022 Clausura is going to start on January 7th. It's going to end on May 29th. Then the 2022 Apertura is going to start on July 1st. and then that's going to end on November 6th, which will give a little bit of time for any national team players to prep for the World Cup, assuming Mexico qualifies for the World Cup, which will start on November 21st. And also regarding, I guess this all emerged recently from Liga MX. I guess what do they call it? I forget what they call it in Spanish. When you literally translate it into English, you're like, that sounds weird. What is it? Because I would call it the Liga MX. I want like the owners summit, or like the owners like because they call it the assembly, right? Anywho, there was an owners assembly last week where they also announced that the repechaje is going to stick around for now. The reduction of foreign players per Liga MX club, that's going to be postponed. So you're still going to have a maximum of 10 registered foreign players and a maximum of 8 in the 11. And also really interesting, they did also say that promotion to Liga MX could return. That's if at least, I know it's a little complicated for the listeners here, but if at least 4 Liga de Expansión clubs meet certification requirements. And if so, then the winner of the promotional playoff could then earn a place in Liga MX. Certification is going to begin next year. So in theory, if you have at least 4 teams that are certified before the next season, and by that I mean 22-23, that you could potentially have promotion Liga MX by 2023. But I don't know that there's a lot of variables that go into that situation. But yeah,
which is something they criticize pretty much because, I mean, obviously we understand why they want that certification, but we don't know what it consists of. We don't know what that certification is. So that's probably what people are criticizing right now. I mean, despite that, I mean, I can understand like putting certain like regulations on what teams you want in Liga MX, because it's been so terrible for some of the teams. I mean, just remembering Veracruz and everything they went through, and having players complain about not getting paid, and then turning their jerseys inside out, and like to complain and stuff like that. I really understand. And then I was looking at the teams, like the current teams in Expansión. I was like, I don't think there's 4 teams right now. And I really think it's going to be very difficult for them to actually have those teams, because they also want like they have certain standards for the stadiums, for instance. And I don't think most of them, or not even 4 of them, have those standards. So I'm probably thinking maybe Dorados has it. Maybe Atlante, because they're playing at the Estadio Azul, and that was the first division stadium until not so long ago. But then you have to look at the finances and make sure that they're okay and they're up to date, and you don't have any like any debts or anything like that. But other than that, I mean, maybe Celaya.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for potentially.
No, I don't think that's coming anytime soon. I mean, I understand why they do it. Again, you just don't want the first division league and having that kind of trouble, right? Specifically before having lots of attention your way because of the 2026 World Cup and maybe Leagues Cup coming up, and you're thinking, oh my God, how are we going to have that team play Leagues Cup against MLS teams if they can't even make it through, I don't know, the paychecks this week? Yeah. So I understand that. I think that what we really need is a system that actually allows those teams to grow, which technically they do have it. Right? Like the teams that end up last in the relegation, they get this fine, and all that money is supposedly going to the Ascenso teams to help them out. But it just doesn't seem enough. It seems as though you really need them to invest somehow in these projects to make sure that, it's something that's actually growing and not just like staying still and staying flat.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think, something to keep an eye on for I'm not even gonna say next season, because by next season we'll probably hear maybe more details, or we might not even hear those details about what those requirements will be for those second division teams. And if this were to happen, it would be at the very earliest December 2023 that a team could potentially be promoted. But I'm not holding my breath. Yeah, like Adriana said, I think it might take a little bit more time, or a lot more time. Who knows? To see that. But let's see. Amy, I know it's easy to get a little bit lost there when it comes to specific Liga MX rules. Potential teams get promoted to Liga MX from the Ascenso. But for you, when we're looking just at Liga MX, when you're looking at the next new season, because it is starting soon, what are your expectations? Who would you have as an early title contender? What are you keeping an eye on?
Right now I'm keeping a look at the feminine final.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, that scoreline changed real quick, didn't it?
Tigres just
Tigres being Tigres, man.
What is there to say at this point? Like Tigre, just insert this into any season at this point. Tigres Femenil makes Liga MX Femenil final. Just throw it in there.
It's starting to become like worrisome, really. I mean, I'm starting to see people say like, "Oh, why? Look at it. Tigres is going to make it through, and they're probably going to win again." But yeah, they're winning 3-0.
We can have a whole discussion. Adriana and I can have a whole discussion about this.
We just go on and on.
It's the semis. They haven't won yet. They haven't won yet. We'll see.
But no, I think looking into next season, I think like it's going to be compact, obviously, because with the World Cup being at in a different format than it usually has been for so many years. And so it'll be interesting what kind of moves the teams make. Obviously, like America has started making some moves now, right? It'll be interesting. We didn't even really touch on this, right? But it just came to my mind. Chivas's little cute tweet yesterday after Atlas finally won there. So it'll be interesting developmental, from a development standpoint that we were just kind of talking about. It will be interesting to see what this championship does for like the rest of the teams, because I mean, I know that they shouted out their ownership, but it does bring into question the kind of development that they're bringing on, the kind of programs they're implementing the system. We were talking about Atlas Femenil a little bit, but you could even make the case for, despite Santos being eliminated early on, both teams, right? Santos and Santos Femenil are on a good trajectory. So it'll just be interesting, to see other big teams kind of, decide what they're going to do. America's obviously going to keep Solari. I've argued that he should stay on. But, what'll actually come from as a change. And for Tivas too, they're clearly struggling in their own way internally, and I'm excited and interested to see what'll happen, right? Because I know that from a national team standpoint, Martino has been pretty. He's been pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? He's been very clear that like there's not going to be too many changes into his system, because after 3 years you've created a whole system, and there's opportunities for small details to be changed, but you've already kind of moved forward with what you want to do when it comes to your World Cup cycle. So I don't know, I'm interested to see what those moves are, how teams change, how players can be used effectively, and if any of that actually translates over, to somebody kind of making their way to the national team for the rosters or anything, And like you said, if Mexico qualifies, which they should. But
that leads us to a perfect transition to the recent friendly, since we haven't had a chance to talk about that, between Mexico and Chile. Mexico getting a 2-2 draw. For me, when I'm looking at this draw, I say 2-2, but I don't care about the result. I don't really care about the scoreline. I think a lot of people were hoping for a good positive end there to the year for El Tri after some issues that they had there. Thought that was clearly a little bummed out in the post-game press conference, after allowing that late equalizer. But for me, I feel like there's just a little bit of like slight optimism for me after watching that game, after watching Santi Jimenez, after watching Julian Araujo, who I thought was the man of the match, after watching Acevedo, and we'll go to Adriana on this. Adriana, how did you feel about that friendly? Because for me, like Amy said, I'm not expecting a wholesale change with the El Tri. I'm not expecting like 14 new players to come in, but
all being called up for the FIFA qualifiers in January.
But maybe Araujo gets in there. Maybe Santi Jimenez gets in there. Yeah.
I'm usually when I saw that game, and then remembering some of the games I saw with the Revelations Cup, I was also really optimistic with what I was seeing. I also kind of struggled thinking like it's been really difficult for the entire federation to make sure that players like take that next step from U20, U23 to the senior team level. I have no idea why it's so difficult, but I mean, I was just looking back and just remember the U17 teams that were world champions, the U23 Olympic gold medalists, and something goes on with that transition that we really screw up. So I was really happy to see some of the players. I agree. Araujo, I think, was really good. And I do think he could be like material for the FIFA qualifiers, definitely. And then I'm just really optimistic because, I mean, hopefully we won't have any other absences looking forward to January and February. But if we did, I mean, you look at Chaquito and you're like thinking, I don't think he'll be a starter. But if something really goes wrong and we do have players that are injured or just can't make it to the games next season, next semester, I mean, you do have pretty decent players to try to begin and fill that void if in case it comes up. I don't think they'll be the ones that will actually solve the game, but you do have like material. You do have somewhere where you can think, hey, these players will step up sometime soon. It just depends on us how soon we want that step to be taken and just take care of them. Because, I mean, everyone was obviously with all this attention with Marcelo Flores, which I totally get. I mean, it's one of those stories that you really like when it happens, and you love these young players. We saw it with Chicharito. We saw it with Guardado when he was called up to the national team. We saw it with Cubo Torres when he was joined like the first team for Chivas and stuff. Like we saw it with Carlos Fierro when he was U17 champion, and he was also called for the senior team with Chivas. But I tweeted it out, and many people I think agreed, and they were like, we just can't screw up with these players anymore. We've done it with so many, not only players but generations. We can't afford to lose more players because of poor management. So I'm glad they gave him minutes. I think it was just a matter of him getting to know Tata. Probably the Mexican national team also trying to like bring him in and, hey, like, this is what it's about. We know you can decide for other teams, like also with Benjamin Galdames. We know you have other offers, but this is what Mexico is about. And we obviously want to convince you to make sure that you join the team whenever you actually have to make that call like permanently. But yeah, just don't burn them out so easily. I mean, it's not, it wasn't the occasion. It wasn't wise to even think about them playing over 45 minutes, because it was just something that we know has happened. Because we just think about all the pressure that fans are saying, oh, he should be starting, he should be playing 45 minutes and he's going to score goals. No, you just breathe in, just take it calm and easy. And when he's ready, he'll be the first one to be called up, I'm sure. But again, I was also really optimistic. I think Acevedo probably is senior national team material as well. Probably Araujo and Acevedo. I'd really like to see that the call up sometime soon.
Yeah, because the way that I think about it is that, I think Araujo, man, I don't know. I agree. We got to be patient. We got to be. I think the word that I think prudent was the word that Tata was using regarding like Marcelo Flores and some of these young players. But with Araujo, I don't know. I'm tempted to just already throw him that right back. But I think for like someone like Santi or someone like Carlos Acevedo, I'm not saying that they will be getting starts, that they'll be getting like consistent minutes like every single Mexico game. But I think with Santi Jimenez, like if you're looking at the number 2, number 3 option for O3, like maybe he could potentially, fill that role.
Compete.
Or like Carlos Acevedo, like if in theory, if we go bring in one young goalkeeper to the next World Cup, then why not kind of, bring him in little by little and have him as one of those options. And I think maybe you sneak another one of those players from the recent call-up. Probably not. I don't know. I think those are probably the best options. Maybe, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough with some of these players in the call-up, but I don't know. I think when you look at this roster, there is potential there. I'm not saying they need to be starters. I will say, although Araujo could be a starter in my mind, but they could be getting some minutes and appearances.
Yeah, you're probably not going to have like many more friendlies on like next semester. So this was probably like their last chance to actually have some minutes with that without that pressure of like qualifiers coming up.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I was going to say that I think I know that people were slightly upset with. I mean, granted, in a way, it would have been nice to see a little bit more minutes for Marcelo, right? It was like 9, okay, but he seemed satisfied with it. I know that people were like, he flew all this way, and I think it was one of the first questions that somebody asked. He flew all this way. Why are you doing this to him? Right?
He got miles.
He got the miles. Think of the points, guys, long term. But I think at the beginning, right, it was more like people getting upset at how declarative that statement was, right, where he's like, he doesn't decide, or like the media doesn't decide, we decide what's best for him, and this is what we thought was an appropriate a lot of time for him, blah blah blah. Have patience with them, which that I agreed with, right. I do think that there's a lot of patience that needs to be done, but he did post a statement saying thank you guys so much, and that he was just happy to be there. And I think that collectively, despite all the speculation, it does seem like there's a good, like the vibes are well between him and the national team, where he understands that it's a long-term project. It doesn't seem as though there's any, bad blood for the little amount of minutes that he got. and stuff. And like Adriana was saying, I think more than anything else, there is just that long-term look at like, we want these players to help us in the next generation. But just like you're saying, Cesar, I do think that there's an argument to be made with, okay, well, bring in this new generation now because they are needed in certain areas. Araujo, I know I was a little worried in terms of the lack of minutes that he's had because LA Galaxy obviously was eliminated and didn't play in the playoffs, but he looked well. He looked confident. He, did what he did best, pushing up on the wing, but also coming back and, defending really well. Acevedo literally about like 2 minutes in proved why he's such a quality goalkeeper. I don't think we're straying away from Ochoa by any means, but I do think that there is a place for him, specifically kind of like Araujo, where you go, he should definitely be in the conversation. Like there's hints, and whether it's just because of the long hair or whatever, there is hints of like, this is what a new active or a young active vibrant player should look like, whereas with Ochoa we kind of seen little glimpses of maybe like, ooh, you're making mistakes you shouldn't be making. With Acevedo, it's like, okay, he's gonna make these mistakes, but it's because he's young, but there's like a lingering promise where it's like, okay, he can still react really well and he can do defensively do a really good job. I think that the only thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that I didn't see from him, but I don't think it was really warranted for this friendly, is like a level of like really strong leadership with his defense. It was more just like, I'm going to block it, but like communication wise, I think it could have been like a little bit better. Did they score again, Adriana?
Yeah. I think with Acevedo though, like actually, I what I'm a little bit like, I think my counter argument for that would be like, yeah, I think that makes sense in this game because he's not exactly accustomed to working with this back line. And I think when you look at his club form, I mean, he's a player who has been basically the captain recently for Santos. And I think that's really telling to have someone like him who's in his mid-20s, who is a captain for not some club team that's struggling, but for a club team that's a consistent playoff contender. So I think that's pretty impressive from Acevedo. And like you said, I'm not saying he should be taking the starting role like away from Ochoa. That's Ochoa's for at least another year or so. But I'm just saying, if you're looking, there's going to be opportunities there for backup minutes, and I think that as opposed to not the only calling up players who are basically in their mid 30s or older, I think in the World Cup, I do like the idea of having one third option young goalkeeper who could potentially go, and I like that. I think ideally it would be Acevedo at this point. It could be Malagón. Who knows? Maybe it could be Malagón, but I think at this point it would be Acevedo.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, we have a pretty old squad if you look at it. Like it's starting to be worrisome because you are. This happened when Mexico faced the U.S. and you were just looking at the U.S. and you're like, oh well, if they don't do too well this time, they're going to qualify. But even if they didn't do as well, they're probably going to reach the 2026 World Cup with that change already in motion. And then I look at Mexico and I'm like, oh my God, Guardado's still there? Okay. Ochoa's 36. So we'll probably go to the next World Cup, but probably not started. Or maybe he'll just retire from the national team. I don't know. But yeah, you're like, oh, there's Chaka. Raul's okay. But then you start looking at several players and you're like, they're old. We really, it can't happen anytime soon because I think you're already committed to those players and that system, and that's okay. But you really, those 4 years between Qatar and the U.S. World Cup, you really have to, push it with generational change because I do think it's going to be really urgent at that point.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I know, because I think Mexico is 1 or 2 years away from being kind of like some of those CONCACAF, like some of the smaller nations who have a smaller pool to work with than Mexico or the United States. But you'll have a player in his late 30s and you're like, he's still getting called up? He's 45. What's this guy still doing World Cup qualifiers? What's Maynard Figueroa or Carlo Costa? I feel like Mexico is very close to having a number of players who are at that level. So that's a little worrisome. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. Amy, any other final thoughts on the friendly versus Chile before we move on to Liga MX Femenil, because I think we can comfortably say that Tigres have a spot in the final, right? No, is there a chance that America get 4 goals here in the last 2 minutes?
Yeah, anything is possible these days. Atlas got a championship. Cruz got a championship. And you gotta always believe, I guess. No, I don't have anything really else to say about the national team. from that point. Tigres. I did. We before we logged on, we did have a little bit of chance to obviously to watch the first half of the game. And I will say it did feel like America was playing to just keep the scoreline, which was not going to happen at the Volcan. Like you had to look for at least one goal, like complicated.
That was a big no.
It was a huge no. Like you have to play to respond really well.
Yeah.
And I just don't think they did it. I think very, very early on, I think it was like instantaneously almost, Belen Cruz almost had a chance to score a goal. And then it was just kind of
like
just
the second minute.
Yeah, it was just like holding from there. And so I was kind of hoping maybe they would, like maybe their system would work for them. But I mean, we logged on and then they just started scoring goal after goal.
So. Did it feel kind of inevitable that like there were a lot of people where we felt like it was like kind of exciting? It's like, oh my God, like America did it. Like they got the win. We know it was at the home leg, but maybe they could pull off something miraculous here. Do you think it was like kind of like
like the argument for that is if you watch that first leg, America doesn't play stagnantly. Like they play, they push. Like it was a little chippy. You know what I mean? Like I think Tigres was still trying to get their chances. I think they were a little taken aback by the fact that America was aggressive and pressured from the get-go, but it worked for them. And I think that that's what was missing from the very beginning of this second leg. And I think that that's something that, yes, there's an argument to be made there about the level of depth that Tigres Femenil has compared to other teams and the level of talent collectively that they have compared to other teams in a collective standpoint. But I think more often than not, it's just like understanding that aspect of when it comes to Liguilla. You have to respond really well to Tigres in a very different way. And up until recent times, Rayadas, when they won the championship, was able to do that. And Chivas, if Caro doesn't miss that PK, also does it in the last final that they did. And I think more teams need to do that. And I don't know, it does. It was inevitable, right? This seemed to be the more logical thing to happen, which is Tigres moves on to their next final. But we weren't able to watch fully the second half, but it was a little disappointing to see the first half start that way for America. And now you have Tigres just commanding and, comfortably making their way to the final yet again.
Is that going to happen in the next game too, Adriana? Is it like Rayadas are going to be able to get a big win over Atlas, or do you think that Alison Gonzalez four goals in this next game? Maybe she scores four goals by herself.
I actually think Atlas is in a better position to make it through than America was with against Tigres, because I do think Monterrey hasn't been as strong as we've seen in previous seasons. So I think Atlas is probably, I'm not entirely sure they'll make it through, but I do think they have better chances than America did against Tigres. Tigres has been, except for like the first leg, and as Amy said, it was just like circumstantial. It wasn't like a regular Tigres game. But Monterrey has been not as, I don't think they've been as strong as they have been in previous seasons. So I do think Atlas coming on, like if they have a really good game, if they get an early goal, it'll be really interesting to see if Monterrey can actually come back from that. So I don't know. Let's see. Just thinking about another final at the Universitario.
You could make the argument that like Adriana saying, like Xolos Femení had a fantastic Liga. I think obviously they got eliminated in the first leg, but Rayadas only makes it to this next leg because of standings. Like if it would have been anything else, there could have been much more. It could have been a Xolos in that semifinal. So I think that's working also to Atlas's advantage. But same thing. I think that they have to come out really strong. I know they're very top heavy when it comes to Allison and her just kind of like doing her thing up top. Which could work in theory, but they have to be a little bit strategic when it comes to that. And if they're able to move forward from that semifinal and face Tigres in the final, I think they just have to do it again. I would almost make the argument that I think sometimes Atlas does kind of like that switch clicks in them, and Allison kind of just does become like this like superhero that they need. What was it, last season or 2 seasons ago? They actually did beat Tigres like 3-0 or something like that. So crazier things have happened. But
she looked like a superhero with that goal last week, though. That was incredible. That when she chipped the goalie right there, that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was a good goal.
Yeah, but I think there's a case to be. Yeah, I think there's a case to be made as we're talking about collectively Mexican soccer and the development that needs to be made in the systems and stuff, there is a discussion that isn't biased or isn't anti, anything. It's just it becomes too top heavy. And, how good is that for the rest of the league? How good is that, marketing wise? And there's a whole lot of discussions where I'm sure it won't be boring. Definitely not. I don't think there's ever been a Liga MX Femenil final that has been boring or not exciting by any means, but it becomes repetitive. And in that sense, where do we go from there? That it's kind of, you're just kind of like, eh.
Have hope, Amy. It could be.
Yeah, we're used to weirdness.
Would it Tigres versus Atlas be great?
Making it somehow. Yeah, that would be a really good one. I mean, hopefully that'll happen. That would be really good. Just having a different final would be really great, to be honest. And can you just imagine what would go like Atlas playing? I mean, there was also this was just terrible. They gave Alison Gonzalez like the best young player of the league, the award. Like they gave her that award at an empty stadium for a semifinal 3 days before actually having that same stadium be entirely like full for a final with the men's side. I was like, really? Nobody like lifted their arm and then was like, hey, why don't we just do this like on Sunday with the entire stadium like packed with Atlas fans and give Addison, like a round of applause or something. They were like, no, we'll do it on a Friday with an empty stadium where no one will applaud that we have the best young player in the league.
Also, quick question about that.
Things.
That was for the 2020-2021 season, right? Like, why do they take so long to give it to her? You thought that it would have been at some point earlier, right? Like, why do they wait?
Yeah, that's true.
Why do they wait until like because that's even more confusing to me. It's just like, why would they wait that long to? Because I was reading, I was like, oh, she won like the young player. I was like, oh, I wonder if it was like just for the Apertura, and I was like, no, everyone's saying it's 2020 to 2021. I was like, so it's for basically at the end of the summer. Yeah, I don't know. That was confusing to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they gave out those awards really late during the season. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I don't know, some weird thing. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think anybody asked, but yeah, it was really late during the season.
Anywho, I think we got just a few minutes left here. Amy, do you want to plug our football podcast? Because I'm sure you guys will have plenty to be talking about. And hopefully you won't be looking as bummed out as you're looking right now.
it'll just be a lot of heavy sighs. And we could I'm totally kidding when I say this, but Adriana, we could just very well republish last year's pod. And it'll just be the same context. But we're gonna probably be recording on Thursday. Things are kind of slowing down, so we'll have time, obviously, to get really in depth with the Liga MX Femenil. We'll probably touch on the quarterfinals, even though they've already been done, but we'll talk about them. Talk about the semifinals, see what happens between Atlas and Rayadas. I think, to be honest, I know we want change, but I think Atlas Rayadas is a really good semifinal match. Second leg, I think it's going to be exciting. So whichever one ends up moving on, deserved. And hopefully they just have the push to kind of go toe to toe against Tigres in the final, who is now at this point qualified and keeps doing their thing. They're a great team with a bunch of great players, no question about it. We'll probably be doing that on Thursday, so be on the lookout for that.
It'll be like
and then the women's qualifiers are coming up as well next semester.
Yes.
They were due to start November, but they pushed it back. So it'll be interesting to see both national teams actually have like World Cup qualifying process like at the same time. Really early for the women's side, but an entirely different tournament coming up. And then the men's side starting off the year probably with 2 empty home games and lots of criticism and lots of pressure again with that for that start of the year. So it's gonna be interesting for Mexican soccer with all that. Calendar came out yesterday. I actually think I was looking at that. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I think next semester's tournament has more exciting games, like a little bit more to the beginning of the tournament rather than like the middle or the end, because I remember this semester.
It's like
looking at the calendar.
They're like, oh my God, Omicron's coming. Like, get all the good games first.
Get them out of the way. Get them out of the way. Go. Yeah, but I was looking, I remember this tournament and I was like, okay, we're starting off slow because everyone was with their national team. So you actually don't have national team players like for 4 weeks, but you had like the worst games possible, like the first like 4 jornadas. And then they came back and they were still pretty poor games. I mean, you were looking at them like, oh, this was terrible jornada. And then again, another one. And then like somewhere like mid-September, it started picking up. And then I was looking at the calendar. I was like, oh my God, please don't do it again. We have all the clásicos in like the last 4 weeks. It is it is definitely a better second half to the semester than it is like the first half. But I think it's not as bad, and probably has to do with Atlas being champion because they face like America in like the third jornada, and you're like, hey, that's pretty good. But I was just really grateful because I was like, oh my God, don't do this thing again where we actually have to wait like 7 weeks to actually have like a clásico or like just a pretty decent game with a high rivalry at stake or something. No, it's better.
Yeah, and there's gonna be no lack of soccer next year. It's gonna be a packed year, obviously with qualifiers, obviously with the qualifiers for like obviously for LTD Femenil. Also, don't forget we're gonna be having the Club World Cup too, which will be in February, I believe.
Yeah, it's like it's like February, and then you have
Yeah.
Conca Champions coming up as well at some point, I think.
Yeah, no, the draw. Yeah, because the draw for the CCL will be actually that'll be this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Hopefully, there aren't the same mistakes we saw from
from the chat. That was embarrassing.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I never thought that would happen in UEFA. It probably maybe CONCACAF, but not UEFA. But I was just thinking about that. We're not going to actually have like any point without any soccer, like for probably like next in 2 years, because we have Liga MX, and then like 3 weeks without anything, and then you have the Apertura coming up, you have the World Cup. Somehow we're going to start off like January with another tournament, and then you have 2023 where we're going to have the Leagues Cup with the MLS teams against the Liga MX teams. We have the Women's World Cup also coming in 2023. So we're not going to stop like until like December 2023ry probably.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I want to go to sleep.
Tell my children, right? It's like this past summer where we had like soccer, like just we were making up for everything the pandemic made us go through, and then we were like, oh my God, we just had like everything happened. We had like Gold Cup and Euro and Copa America and the Olympics.
The lesson here then, guys, is really, really enjoy these next like 2 to 3 weeks of just like silence. I mean, I know the EPL and stuff.
We'll find.
I'm actually struggling and know like, what am I going to watch on TV? There's like nothing on. For 3 weeks, and then
just enjoy the silence just a little bit, I guess, because we're not going to sleep.
There's probably like youth tournaments, like U20 World Cup sometime soon as well.
See, this is also the time. I know we should probably wrap up, but this is like, it's like I like to be busy and like to do like little, like, I don't know, just like try to find some sort of soccer league. And I usually can busy myself with like MLS, Liga MX, L3, like, US men's national team stuff, like USL, even or NISA, but there's always this like weird moment in like late December. I'm like, I'm gonna have to like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. Like, and sometimes it's watching a TV show. Maybe I'm gonna have to get into some new like video game. I have no idea. But anyways, I guess we're closing out with the theme of there's too much soccer. Enjoy the next couple of weeks, I guess. All right, but thanks to everybody. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I was about to say thanks for listening this year. I guess we have to figure out what we're gonna do for the rest of the year.
We might not have a slight plot twist. We might not have an Andres Aguardados this year. Okay. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, we'll definitely see what we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
If this might very well be that next week is our last episode for this year.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I'll just treat like
we talk about. Maybe we can do a best of because I won't have time to do the Andres Aguardados. I don't know. We'll talk about it off air.
Yeah,
but it might be. It might be next. It might be next week.
I might just treat it like the Guardados and just like show up in a suit with like a fancy cocktail and just like make up my own awards.
No production. Hey, I'm all for it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. I'll save. I was like, Jesus, I have to do my like final year goodbyes here. But
you have time.
We'll save that for next week. But thanks, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode.